He's not the co-host yet, sir. Now he is. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I can. Yeah.
So we'll start.
Yes, sir. Just give me a moment. I'll just log in from my mobile. Just give me a moment.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hello.
How to mute one device.
Yeah, I have
To mute
my
one device.
mobile.
To mute one device. Okay, mute one.
Is it fine, sir?
So shall we begin?
Okay. Let him share and you check sharing. Huh? Okay. Okay, we'll start.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So, sir, I am starting.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Please start.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, University of Delhi, I hereby welcome all the faculty members, presenters, research fellows, and all our listeners to part 3, session 16 of the national webinar on multidisciplinary approaches to folk life, challenges and perspectives. I am Isha Tyagi, a PhD research fellow at the department and also your moderator for this session. Before we begin, I would like to thank and welcome our convener and head of the department, Professor P.C. Patnaik. Thank you so much, sir, for being the glue that holds this webinar together. And before we move on to our first presentation for this session, I would like to give a quick recap of all the rules that are to be followed by all the presenters. First of all, the time limit for each paper presentation is 20 minutes only, which is to be followed by a 10-minute discussion round wherein you can write your questions, comments, and observations. I request all the presenters to kindly adhere to the time limit. I also request all the listeners to kindly keep your mics on mute at all times and type your questions only in the chat box. Also, I request you all that you should try and type your questions while the presentation is going on so that we save on to some time and it allows us to take more questions. So I think without any further delay, we should move on to our first presentation. So our first presenter for the day is Anatham Homan Singh Sir, University of Delhi. And the title of his paper is Understanding Khongnung Eshai Manipuri Folk Songs in Contemporary Times. I welcome you, Homan Sir, and I request you to kindly introduce yourself to everyone before you start with your presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Hantem Homen Singh, and IT is Comparative Indian Literature in the Department of Modern Indian Language and Literary Studies. Uh, that is a brief introduction about myself. Now let me just go straight to my paper. So let me just share the screen with you. Can you see it?
Yes, sir. It is visible. Just turn it to slideshow so that it becomes full screen. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Today the title of my paper is Understanding Khongnung Isai is Manipuri folk songs in contemporary times. On the outset, I want to say that this is a working paper, and these actually has come up from my conversation with my uncle, who is a approved All India Radio lyricist, as well as he's right now trying to write a book, composing a book on these songs, basically in Manipur. And out of our conversation, we were talking about the folk songs basically, and from there. We thought that there are certain not actually issues, but certain kind of misconceptions, as well as uh, certain problems when we talk about the folk song in Manipur. Because many of the times when we talk about folk songs, it's basically kind of seen that it is more about what you call about a contemporary one, just and when we try to talk to some people also, the moment when we ask about what is folk song, or not actually folk song, like what is kunung isai, okay, then they suddenly shift to a generalization of what they call folk song. So let us try to find out through this paper that the kind of issues that we see within the study, or within what you call understanding kunung isai, or what you call folk song in Manipur. The This is the outline of my presentation. There are three sections. Though the first section, I'll be talking about the general definitions and the characteristics of folk songs as given by scholars who belong to the field of folklore and musicology, as from abroad, and as well as uh, some from what they call the Manipuri scholars. And then the next portion will talk about what they call the Meitei folk songs in terms of the nomenclature, okay, and the categorization with certain observations and certain issues that we find there. And lastly, we also like to problematize the whole idea of what is the folk song in the contemporary times. So there is a question, whether it is what they call a modern, is going with the modern sense, or still retaining what they call the folk element over there. Okay, so coming to the first section, which is called the folk songs definitions. Now, see, it is considered what you call as a simple, spontaneous, and what you call rhythmic composition. Okay, rhythmic composition. Folk songs are what you call important cultural markers of a group of people or folk. So, handed down through generations, folk songs are believed to be their oral repertoire, echoing their social cultural ethos since from a very long time. And they are also the reflection of their elementary emotions and the feelings of both their personal and the universal views. Now, let us come to some of the definition of folk songs, as laid down in some of the important books. Okay, so let me go to some definitions. So what is folk song basically? So according to Samuel L. Fortusi, in his A Folk Song History of America, he said that folk songs could be said as the songs of the people and are the creations of one or more persons working singly or in groups. Okay, so it can be group or it can be a single person. Thus, they are the songs which is created by the common people who use this medium of human expression to describe what they call their way of life. Because so this is what a definition of folk song given by this scholar, talking about the general, characteristics of what can be said about folk song. And then in the Standard Dictionary of Folklore in Mythology and the Legend, which is a long one, from there, what we can see is that, that it is mentioned there that, folk song is an art in which the average member of the group, okay, so it's about group, participates more generally than in the case with the cultivated music or what we call literature of the city. So what there Nearly everyone in a folk group knows the songs, so that is one of the unique quality of the song, of the folk songs, and sings them, or at least listens to them and knows a good deal about them. They don't know the whole song, but they know, bits and pieces of it, and it is, they can harm it, very easily. On many occasions at which singing is by a group, the less outstanding singers have ample opportunities for participating. For example, like when they are singing, they can sing the refrain, or they can just say hi ho, like, they just can, call back, or imitate some sounds from there. Okay, now skill, a good voice, however, are appreciated. Better equipped singers are recognized for their aptitude, the way of delivering, and the less accomplished singer may not necessarily perform in the hearing of others. Okay, so this is also what they call the kind of, definition that is laid down in terms of folk song by in this dictionary, in the standard dictionary of folklore. Uh, this is quoted from an introduction to English folk song by Maud Karpeles in 1973. This is the definition of a folk song which has been adopted at the International Folk Music Council at its conference in Brazil in 1954. And it's very interesting that how they are going to define, folk music. They have used the word folk music here. Folk music and the folk song, have been used like commonly to, to indicate that kind of genre of songs. Okay, so they have used what they call, and when we are trying to read some of the works also, they have been used, folk, either folk song or folk music. The intricacies, well, we have to find out, but generally speaking, when we see, is usually see either folk song or folk music. So now it's said that the folk music is the product of a musical tradition that has been evolved through the process of transmission. And this transmission, basically oral transmission. But now, within the modern context, many of the songs have been written down, have been, published, okay, and have been canonized in that matter. Now, the factors that shape this tradition, okay, according to this folk music council, adoption, they said that it is a continuity with which links the present with the past. So the importance of tradition. That means for tradition, has to be what you call a continuity. It has to have a flow. It has to perpetuate. Okay, continue. So continuity which links the present with the past. Okay, it's about about your past identity. Okay, or everything. Now, the number two is variation. So variation which springs from the creative impulse of the individual or the group. So this is interesting that there we can find certain variations of a song. For example, when we sing, also we find it, okay. There are certain variations in terms of the lyrics, or in terms of the music, but not much with the music. But sometimes, for example, for example, there is a song, like, in Manipur, when which is sung when, a mother, basically, or a mother is what you call, batting a toddler, or just a baby born. So she sings like, ting ting sao ro thabina, karingai kahoro numina wani kwang horo thabina karingai kahoro napa masum taro napu masum taro. Okay, so the last two lines we said napa masum taro napu masum taro. In some other forms they said sana masum taro lupa masum taro. Okay, so the rhythm is fine, but the words, have been changed. Okay, but that doesn't actually break the structure, and certain scholars have tried to infer different meanings to it. Okay, this is another discussion which I'm not, going to involve in this paper. And then it is also what they call the selection by the community, which determines the form or the forms in which the music survives. Okay, so it is also, what they call a kind of the community, as a group, to kind of see that this particular songs, this particular music survives, from till the present. Okay, so these are. So among like with interestingly we know with around 4 or 5 books which have been referred, and from there when we try to look at some of the general characteristics of folk songs, we can differ these points. We can kind of take these points that what are folk songs from the definitions as well as discussions on folk songs. We can have some general characteristics which might describe or which might say about folk songs. So what folk songs? Number one, folk songs are the musical expression of the common people or folk which is belonging to a particular region. Their words or lyrics are usually colloquial in nature, thus reflecting the speech pattern and their unique expressions. And interestingly, they are simply structured, both musically and verbally, thus providing scope for the participation of the whole community to sing the songs. Okay, there are certain problems which will come in the next portion. They are the product of an unknown person or group that of groups which are created rather than composed. So it is said that it is not composed, because when you say like composed, when you say created by the kind of by the group or by the folk community. So rather than composed, it said I prefer to say it is created. Now these songs are usually performed without musical instrument in many cases, or with the accompaniment of a single local instrument. For example, if you look into the Meitei culture, you'll find that that you have there's a string instrument called pena. Okay, or maybe like in folk song in other countries, you might find a single guitar, or it is some sort of instrument which has a connection with that community, which has some history, which has some kind of connection with that particular community generally. And another point is that these songs are transmitted orally from generation to generation through listening and taking part in the singing act. So not written down, not trained as such, but through listening and as well as taking part in the singing act. That is a participation in the act. Usually no formal technique of teaching, training, which we call the Guru Shishya Parampara, if I have to use the word, and the rehearsing is connected with the making and the singing of folk songs. So this is, basically these points are taken from like the scholars who have dealt about it. Okay, now another one is the flexibility and the variability characterize the tune as well as the text of a folk song. So it's not a kind of what you call a very strict or very kind of uh, 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 say uh, text as such, but but there can be just a flexibility. So that is what when I mentioned that song, there are certain flexibility in which you can kind of you can arrange or rearrange, or you can substitute a word also. Okay, so now melodies which are spread over an area also show considerable variation. So there can be variation. And as the purpose of the folk song is to describe human experiences, it is not surprising that a variety of folk song exists. So we have different forms of folk songs there, work songs, So this is where since it is describing what you call various human experiences. So it might or it covers a lot of what you call human activities and experiences. Coming to what you call the Meitei folk songs in nomenclature. So while we do not have we have couple of we have a lot of songs, but a discourse or basically kind of in-depth discussion in the uh, study of folk songs is still limited, and it has also been observed by L. Birendra Kumar Singh, who has composed this book called Manipuri Kunung Isai Khomjinba, which is an anthology of Manipuri folk songs published by Sahitya Academy. In the introduction, he's also mentioned the kind of limited kind of inquiry or within the study of folk song, or basically for folk song in Manipur. Okay, so now coming into the older, let us try to find out whether what can be the nomenclature or what are the uses that we can ascribe to what you call the term called folk song in Manipur. Okay, so in Manipuri folk songs of the Manipuri, I'm saying Meitei Lon. Okay, this is a particular language of the Meitei community, because in Manipur we have different other community also, and that they have their own folk song and in their own what you call language. Okay, so Meitei Lon, it is called Kunung Isai, and here Kunung basically is ancient or maybe rural. Okay, and Isai is particular song. So, however, to solely equate the term folk song with Kunung Isai would be problematic as referred to as Kulak Isai. Because this is the problem with nomenclature. Because when we talk to certain performers as well as some scholars, they will say this Kunung Isai, Kulak Isai, Maitai Inat Isai, Kutlang Isai, etc. Okay, for example, this particular term called Kutlang Isai, it is considered to be a form of folk song. Okay, so now we have, for example, we have, a scholar by the name of Loitongbam Kalachan Singh, who had written a book in Manipuri called Maitai Inatki Isai. So, roughly translated, for example, if you are going to translate Inat, it will be equivalent to culture. But in the book itself, he has what he call the translated title in English is Maitai Folk Song. Okay, then we have Maitai Kulak Isai by Gaurachandra Sharma also, where there is one by O. Bogeshwar where he tried to talk about lok sahitya, lokgit, etc. But a very what you call very definite what you call nomenclature or name that will talk about Manipuri folk Meitei folk song is still lacking. Okay, now as I said, that because of the varieties of the human experiences that has been uh, experiences, it leads to what they call certain categories. So in Manipur, in the Meitei folk song, we can have around four major categories, which has also been talked about by like some Bir Chandra Birachandra Singh, who is a well-known, folk singer, so which is a singer as well as a scholar who has worked exclusively in folk song. So we have, there are songs which are related to rituals. Okay, which has been served with the ritual context. Okay, for example, say we know there is what you call a mega what you call uh, uh, event which is called the Lai Harawa, which is can be translated, have as pleasing of the gods, or some of them have said is the merriment of the gods, because Lai is the deity, the spirit, and Harawa is basically merriment. But some scholars have said that they are not actually what you call uh, it is you're trying to appease the god, you're trying to please the god. Okay, so that is why Laharogma. So and we have Saroi Kangba, and there are also songs which are sung on occasions of calamity, right, drought, so that in order to invoke the rain gods. Okay, so we have also kind of songs which contain myths or origin myths or allusions to what you call some legendary or historical events, dating back to say around 6th, 7th century, but and after that also, so like Augri, Hijan Hirao, Kenzo, etc. Then we have also another category of song which is called Yakaiba. Yakaiba basically means waking up. Okay, so within the Lai Haraoba, when the in the early morning you kind of sing these songs to kind of wake the gods. Okay, and later it has also been used as kind of uh,
Um, sir,
yes,
sorry to interrupt you, but
yes,
kindly conclude in 2 to 3 minutes.
okay, just give me 5 minutes, is that fine? I'll wrap up.
Okay,
5 minutes.
sir.
Okay. uh well, I think now let me come through observation. Now the problem with this thing, in terms of saying about folk songs, is that the problem is that here it seems that these songs, okay, are mainly sung by the maibis and the maibas, okay, which are the ritual practitioners. Okay, and it seems that the common folk are not included within it. Okay, so I have given a sort of from C.S. Maniar, who has made these observations. Okay, now okay. this is another, another song which is called the Kulang Isai or Kutung Isai, which is actually love songs that are sung with full emotions and which is sung, outdoors. Okay, so it may be a young man, who's walking, maybe singing a song. Okay, and this is a chance to express the romantic feeling. And at the same time, what it does is the girl will what you call indirectly reply to the questions or praise by the man singing the song. Okay, but my observation is that that when you listen to these songs, the words exchanged through these songs are supposed to be spontaneous, as laid down within the frame of Kutlang Isai. But while listening to them, it seems the language are highly poetic. Okay, so and also the singing style seems to be a matured, a trained voice, which is unlikely of the characteristic of a folk song, which can be sung by anyone. Okay, and then this involvement of spontaneous process of exchanging with questions with appropriate words or imageries also need a further need to be brought further. Then we have something called the Paukshu Isai, which is about harvesting. Interestingly, most of these activities are involved with what you call agricultural activities or what you call the paddy cultural activities. Okay, and then we have what they call the children's songs. For example, see like the what you call Naukso Misai or called Naukte Misai, in order to what you call Sudan aside, which is being sung by the by a mother like Tata Tabung To Naza Mora Mipo Bige, and we still know. So interestingly, it is we still sings, but see, but we also see that there are lots of lots of songs we do not know, or which the children at this point of time has not been able to sing, or they are not introduced to those songs. Okay, because probably, for example, say is a game song. Tong 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 be. Okay, all these songs nowadays the younger generation seems to have kind of seems to have not learned these songs. Okay, so it seems that they are slowly erasing out from the memory of the people. Okay, but as I said that there is what you call a solace that is given by Akashvani Imphal, which says that which actually kind of broadcasts a particular song at 9 a.m. And which still reminds us of these songs and which is still perpetuating. Okay, uh, let me just give me 2 minutes. Let me just share just a moment. Okay, just these songs, because this is what I was talking about. This is what you call the song, that uh, kind of that kind of still remembers the uh, the uh, the child song that we get to see. Just I'm just finishing. I'm not able to what you call conclude. Let me just show a small uh, song, and then I'll finish it. Okay, and this is about what you call the modern retention of the song. Just a moment. Just will take just 30 seconds.
No problem, sir.
Mm.
So we are not able to hear the
Hear
audio.
it?
No, 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 sir.
Okay, then let it be. I don't think I won't be doing justice to it if you cannot listen to the song. Okay. Uh, yeah. Okay.
Since your PPT screen is muted, I
Is
think
muted.
you're
Yeah.
using two devices, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I am facing a
Or
lot of
maybe you can
difficulty.
share the link in the chat box for
Yeah,
us.
I will do it. Okay, so just this last point. See, the problem is that that when in the modern context now, the folk with the folk singer, there's some kind of individual sense coming over. For example, they tend to introduce themselves folk singer, folk artist, folk performer. Okay, as and which have been trained under the Guru Shishya Parampara. And many of the times it is that that is the songs, the lyrics are also composed newly. Okay, and then the modern musical instruments are also being accompanied in this rendition of the songs. And then well, it leads to what they call intermingling of various tunes, which we find in other Manipuri songs also. Okay, so we need to actually again ponder and look into what you call we look into the various aspects of what constitute or what will be the perfect, not the perfect but a very genuine definition of what you call of folk song in Manipuri. Okay, so thank you so much. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Homan sir, for your
Mm-hmm.
wonderful presentation. It was
Mm-hmm.
quite engaging to see how you have invested time and such amazing efforts in order to trace down the transmission and the continuity of Manipuri folk songs in contemporary times. I think it is very important for the present day scholars to also understand that how these folk traditions are to be carried forward. So thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you,
Uh,
Isha. Thank you.
Sir, we do have one question from Ruchi Rana. She's thanking you for your presentation, and then she says, "Sir, could you tell us the significance of Meitei folk songs in contemporary world for the community? Did you notice any challenges in the continuation of folk song genres as collective tradition, or any instance of problem faced by a particular genre with changing times?"
Yeah, thank you, Isha. Thank you, Ruchi. A very interesting question. Your questions, the three, you have three parts. So let me just, come to the first part. You said, like, what is the significance of Meitei folk songs in contemporary world for the community? Okay. There's a still significance of these Meitei folk songs in the contemporary times. When we kind of relate it to the whole say uh, what do you call the festival which is called Lai Harau. Okay, interestingly, because it is where your myths, okay, your what do you call your myths, your legends, your every aspects of what you call the formation of life, basically of the community, is still there. Okay, it can be reflected in the songs over there, and which is what you call which is significant in order to what you call assert or in order to what you call retain that identity in this contemporary world. And now another thing is like any challenge in the continuation of folk song genres as collective tradition. Well, that is what I was trying to say. The question of collective tradition. The collective tradition seems to be vanishing. For example, that as I said, when a performer is performing, like when there is a performance, we kind of tend to look it as a solo performance or what you call a stage performance. Okay, the kind of involvement of the community, of the whole community, which is supposedly one of the basic feature of folk songs, in terms of say activities like husking the husking the rice. Okay, for example, see, there's something called Paushu Isai. Paushu Isai is like when women are what you call pounding the rice. Okay, but now the thing is like it is not there. Okay, it is not there in the sense that said that the rice, what you call rice mill, has taken over. Okay, so women have been deprived of this singing. And even Kulang Isai, which I said is a little problematic, because it is said that there was a what you call an interaction between the young boys and the young girls singing these songs, but hardly we fail to observe it now. Okay, so any sort of problem faced by particular genre with changing times. So this is the whole point. The whole point is like that that even when we try to speak to some of the performers, okay, because these performers now, they are trained. They have been trained under very Guru Sisya Parampara from, like say, North Sankirtan, Khongjom Isai, Khongjom Parba. Okay, then you have something called Moirang Sai. So North Sankirtan, which is basically a kind of Sankring and Sankirtan basically. Okay, so now they have induced it. Okay, and when they sing it, sometimes it is reflected on their singing style. Okay, so now they also, like, little confused as to, like, they are trying to, what you call, they're trying to retain that originality, or they are also, what you call, trying to, what you call, innovate. Okay, the tunes, and we, raise certain questions about what actually, or what exactly is, what you call, the Kunung Isai, or what you call Manipuri folk, Meitei folk song.
Thank you, sir. I think
Mm,
that settled Ruchi's query.
mm.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
So,
thank thank you, Tyagi.
so we do not
Mm,
have our second presenter with us today, Shreya Pandey. She could not be on board with us. So, without wasting any time, I think we should move on to our next presenter. Uh, I welcome you, Himanshu Kumar from Hansraj College, University of Delhi. And the title of his paper is Recasting Folk Tales as Teleseries. I welcome you, Himanshu. Kindly introduce yourself to everyone before you start with your presentation. Over to you, Himanshu.
Thank you, Isha. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're
Okay,
audible.
okay. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm Himanshu Kumar, and I've been teaching English in Hansraj College for more than a decade. And I'll quickly just start with my paper. My paper will explore folktales as secondary orality in the electronic communication medium, namely television, and dwell upon folktale elements of a popular television text, that is the soap opera. In India, television is so personalized and humanized that the space this medium occupies in the collective psyche is remarkably different from those of other cultures. To describe the presence of traditional storytelling elements in these visual texts as mere residue would be to underestimate the power and presence of the oral in India. All electronic communication mediums in India foster and disseminate storytelling in various forms like folk tales, tall tales, jokes, anecdotes, and so on. In other words, this paper will investigate the folk process of storytelling in the contemporary era of electronic communication. Right. So first let me talk a little about secondary orality. The oral residue occurs because people educated for oral expression will use those expressions in their writing. Even typographic cultures sustain traces of oral culture, but they do so to varying degrees. In addition to oral residue marking print culture, orality also returns as secondary orality in post-print culture. To quote W.J. Ong, we speak of the orality of pre-literate man as primary orality and of the orality of our secondary technologized culture as secondary orality. Secondary orality is founded on, though it departs from the individualized intervention of the age of writing, print, and rationalism, which intervene between it and primary orality, and which remains at part of us. History is deposited permanently, but not inalterably as personality structure, unquote. So what we understand is that the strands and habits of these oralities do not disentangle easily. The use of formulary devices, for instance, appears constantly in primary orality. These are mainly used to describe, to store knowledge, to compose utterances, and so on. Today's electronic culture of radio, cinema, and television still uses formulae, but in different ways. The formulary devices is no longer deeply grounded in practical living since it now has relatively limited use of for knowledge storage and retrieval. Instead, we use formulae as cliches or as starting and closing points in plot, storyline, character, and so on. Now, moving to the kind of relationship that is enjoyed between folklore and technology. And let me also refer to a popular tale of the barber and the king. Of course, you all must be knowing the story, so I won't tell it to you. But in brief, I would refer to the donkey ears and then the drum beating towards the end and telling the entire kingdom about it. So, linking that to A.K. Ramanujan, I would say that nothing is lost, only transformed. So, flames and stories are never put off. They change shapes and rush to the temple for a gossip session. Today, folktales have also resurrected as cinema or television texts. India's age-old love for the oral found a powerful means of expression in the mass media, particularly in visual media like television and cinema. These are unmatched for the volume of popular cultural texts they produce and the sheer size of the audience. For example, television as the traditional bard appeals to a much larger population group than ever before. In fact, to a much broader array of diverse social groups. The era of the video and the cybernetic technology, the age of electronic reproduction, has developed new forms of visual stimulation and illusionism with unprecedented powers. The fantasy of a pictorial turn of a culture totally dominated by images has now become a real technical possibility on a global scale. We are eyewitnesses to a new era in which the folk tale has gained unprecedented reach through electronic dissemination. So, moving on to the kind of relationship that we see between folklore and media, right? Because it's a mixing of the two of them. So the development and institutionalization of culture studies has long been intertwined with that of media studies. It is not enough to recognize that the mass mediums play a significant role in folktale transmission and dissemination. It is closer to the truth to admit that they have become a part of storytelling. An observer of emergent folklore may be able to decipher the meaning of basic human ideas that continue to recur in myriads of new interpretations through the accessibility of the modern media. In fact, folktales reproduced and placed in new contexts produce new versions, providing that mass mediums contribute to the maintenance and creation of folktales. So this is the kind of relationship that we find between both of them. Moving on to talk about television and cinema and the relationship to folktale. Uh, Cinema and television, like the traditional storyteller, are also looked down upon by the society within a framework that seeks to polarize high culture and low culture. Cinema and television are seen as being part of the latter, whereas forms such as classical music are seen as part of high culture. Television is the idiot box, and the television viewer is often viewed as a couch potato. There is a certain moral policing that appears to color such a polarization. Cinema and television are routinely attacked for being bad influences, especially on children. Yet, the power of folk tales, cinema, and television as effective tools and instrument of influences is well known. Come elections, and the television becomes an instrument for propaganda. Several major political parties and religious groups float their own channels. Indian cinema is full of social and political satire. Alan Dundas remarks that whether folklorists like it or not, the evolution of man is moving in a direction towards more rather than less consciousness and awareness of culture. He makes a distinction between folklore revivals and survivals. A survival, by definition, is marked by a continuity of tradition. It is the result of an unbroken historical chain through time. A revival, however, may well follow a break in tradition. It may even occur after the particular item has, for all practical purposes, become extinct. The point is that folklore revival is a conscious and artificial phenomenon. The revival, of course, occurs with no conscious assistance, but the survival and the revival of folktales find ample representation in the text of electronic mediums. Folktales and cinema television are mutually dependent on each other. Folk, classical, and mythical stories continue to enrich Indian cinematic and television texts. Most of the films that were made in the first few years of Indian cinema were taken from drama centered on mythology. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata have been filmed as abridged whole and in parts in almost all Indian languages. This brings to mind Ramanujan's Akam Puram or domestic public spectrum of folk performance. Akam means interior, Puram is the exterior. Akam also tends to mean house as well. The grandmother's tale is told in the house or in the backyard. She is the housewife, the audience is the family. The language of the domestic tale is close to ordinary speech, heightened or lightened occasionally by the talent of the granny. The style is swift, the diction racy and dialectal. The stories and songs in the Akam spectrum are mostly told or sung by women and revolve around female characters. Draupadi, Sita, Kunti, Amba, Rukmani, and Urmila tend to be the main protagonists in the tales told. Right. So the Akam Puram dichotomy can by extension be applied to cinema and television as well. The television is the Akam spectrum, and the television audience is usually family or friends. Like the Akam folk performance, it is interior, private, and familial in terms of teller and audience. The cinema is more of a Puram performance, and the audience may comprise of a larger group of different people from different sections of the society. So the teleserials revolve around women characters and target women as audience. Cinema, on the other hand, is male dominated and women are mostly showpieces. While the hero dominates the scene in films, the small television screen is sprinkled with ideal daughters-in-law, villainous mothers-in-law, sacrificing wives, suffering mothers, and so on. The stories in the Akam spectrum were mostly told at bedtime or mealtime. In a survey conducted on storytelling in families, most of the women said that they fed their children before watching their favorite television serial because they didn't want to get disturbed. And at the same time, they wanted to fulfill their duties as well. But the few families who did not permit this habit said that it was part of the enforcement of discipline. Now, television viewing usually takes place in familiar surroundings, mostly at home. Such an environment encourages audience participation. This is reinforced by the fact that members of the audience usually constitute a group who knows each other intimately. In other words, the television fits neatly into the established social structure of the family. There is no mass viewing like cinema. Each family audience negotiate their own stance towards the message of particular television text, thereby modifying their meaning. This, in a way, creates a bond between the viewers and the medium. Uh, Moving on to the soap opera. A soap opera is a television or radio serial drama. The term soap opera was coined by the American press in the 1930s to denote the extraordinary popular genre of serialized domestic radio dramas, which by 1940 represented some 90% of all commercially sponsored daytime broadcast hours. The soap opera alluded to the sponsorship by manufacturers of household cleaning products, while opera suggested an iconic incongruity between the domestic narrative concerns of the daytime serial and the most elevated form of drama. The defining quality of soap opera is its seriality, says Allen in speaking of soap operas. A serial narrative is a story told through a series of individual, narratively linked installments. Unlike episodic television programs, in which there is no narrative linkage between episodes and each episode tells a more or less self-contained story, the viewer's understanding of and pleasure in any given serial installment is predicated to some degree upon his or her knowledge of what has happened in the previous episode. Furthermore, each serial episode always leaves narratives loose ends for the next episode to take up. That's why we have this business of recap. The viewer's relationship with serial characters is also different from those in episodic television. In the latter, characters cannot undergo changes that transcend any given episode, and they seldom reference events from previous episodes. Serial characters do not change across episodes. They age and even die, and they possess both histories and memories. Serial television is not merely narratively segmented. Its episodes are designed to be parceled out in regular installments so that both the telling of the serial story and its reception by viewers is institutionally regulated. Now, the general features of soap opera as a genre are summarized by Chris Baker. So I'll quickly go through them. The first is open-ended narrative forms. What he means is that soap opera as a long-running serial has a potentially unlimited time period in which it can tell stories. So there's not the sense of closure to be found that we find in feature films or some web series. Second is core locations. Most soaps establish a sense of geographical space that the audience can identify with and to which the characters return again and again. The third is tension between the conventions of realism and melodrama, which are followed by the soap operas, which utilizes the conventions which can be differentiated in terms of the balance struck between them. The next is the pivotal themes of interpersonal relationship. So marriages, divorce, breakups, new alliances, arguments, acts of revenge, and acts of caring are at the core of soap opera, providing the narrative, dynamic, and emotional interest. So this is in short the kind of things that soap operas deal with. Now let's come to the Indian soaps, which began with the introduction of television sets in Indian homes. The first soap opera was the highly successful Hum Log in 1984, closely followed by Bunyad. Indian soaps do not severely deviate from the specifications outlined by Bharkar. Keeping the Akam spectrum in mind, the emphasis is on the central woman protagonist who is identified with the mythological icons like Draupadi, Sita, or Savitri. It is the ideal world in which values traditionally associated with women are given space and expression. Of course, things are changing now to a certain extent. These series with the utopian world have become extremely popular and occupy hours of prime time space on Indian television. Several Indian soaps have been extended elaborately due to the excellent audience response rating. So we all remember Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki, Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, Ye Rishta Kya Kehlata Hai, and even on Asianet we had series like Stree and Suryaputri. The structure is that of continuing episodes maintaining a unity through more or less permanent cast of characters, settings, and group of themes on or varieties of the same theme. The family forms the mythic center of the soap opera. In the serials that we have just mentioned, we can have a typical Marwadi or Gujarati entrepreneur family. Then it talks about feuding families, extramarital affairs, illegitimate children, wives forcing husband to cohabit with other women, etc., etc. So a lot of them seem to be borrowed from the Indian folk tales as well. Now, because of its leisurely pace, the soap opera is allowed time for development of character, but no such development takes place. Characters, unlike as in written literature, are usually flat, representing one human characteristic such as wickedness, goodness, stupidity, etc. They are, as in folk tales, typical, like the cunning fox, stupid donkey, wicked wolf, ideal daughter-in-law, spiteful mother-in-law, erring husband, wicked vamp, dutiful daughters, etc. Traditional values are upheld. The role of women as wife, daughter, mother, importance of family, glorification of joint family, chastity, and so on, or underlined. Infidelity and divorce abound in the soaps and are occasion for great agony and soul searching. A floundering marriage is always to be saved. Children are gifts of God, and a close-knit patriarchal family is emphasized. Festivals are highlighted and often figure on the actual day of the corresponding festival in reality, many times. Forgotten customs and rituals are rigged up and highlighted, thus reviving and disseminating tradition. At the same time, reinstating taboos, superstitions, and conventional belief systems to a great extent. The time advantage is used to extend plot and create subplots. Just as in the chain story, several characters appear only to move plot from one point to the other and then vanish to never appear again. The slower the life pace and movement, that is, a single day in the life of characters, may require weeks of episodes. Works on the plot, but rarely on the character. They are episodic, and several such episodes are sutured to go on till the audience rating falls. So we all remember the kind of impact that these serials have had. For example, the death of Meher Virani in Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, right? It had a kind of a great impact on the society. So let me just quickly give you a short analysis of one of these teleserials to show how they appropriate folktale elements. So I'll take the example of Wo Rehne Wali Mehlon Ki, which was telecast in 2007. So it had a high TRP rating for almost 5 years or so, and it was extended to the second generation. The story begins with that of Rani, a rich girl whose family undergoes a reversal of fortune and who's married into a middle class family. After Rani's death, the story revolves around Pari, her daughter, who is married to Somme, the son of Pari's father's spurned love, Kamya. Now, Kamya gets Soumya married to Pari because of a Guruji who predicts that Soumya's wife would die on the 40th day of marriage. So Soumya agrees to the wedding because he doesn't want the beloved to die. So it is decided that he will marry her after the death of his first wife, as predicted by the Guruji. And then there are multiple twists and turns, and it is said that that there's a fatal threat to Pari from water on the 10th day, fire on the 12th day, on the 13th day by air, and right. So a lot of things are there, and then with a certain twist happening, she is somehow saved. But that doesn't lead to the end of the story, because again some complication happen and the story continues. So you have tales of story, being related under a story. So this is almost like the Panchatantra phenomena of storytelling, and this brings in new characters and plots that vanish once they have fulfilled their purpose. right? So to conclude, I would say that television is a highly visible medium and it does influence people's behavior, if only to the extent that more people watch for more hours today than they did perhaps, I think, a generation ago. The hours that television fills today were previously filled by various activities like chatting, knitting, dozing, or visiting people. Right, so they have given way to a lot of television hours. It has brought new stimulus into the home and created a demand for more rather than less entertainment of other kinds. Right, so and also we see that it brings a good many competitors into the living room of families who would otherwise be deprived of them. So different kinds of mediums are now trying to grab the attention of people. So folklore continues to manifest its characteristics, traditional ideas, beliefs, attitudes, and meanings in modern industrial society through the media. Folklore forms, which are traditional, emergent, new, and reconstructed, appear in innumerable retellings, varied according to the need of the accommodating media. So it has become necessary for folklorists to address the issue of technological development and what it does to folklore and the folk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Himanshu sir, for winding up right on time.
You're welcome.
I thank you for such an interesting presentation. You have focused on the reinvention of folk elements in television series, and especially how it is defined by culture, society, and very important, I think, the value system of the viewers is a very important observation. And you've also traced its similarity to that of myths and folk tales. So thank you, sir. There are a few questions ready for you in the chat box, so I would quickly read them for you. The first question is from Professor PC Patnaik. He says, can we divide the culture as high and low? Where do we stand then?
Okay, so what I was referring to was the fact that how society as a whole, ends up categorizing things and cultures in one category and the other, which becomes problematic after some time. And that's why I said that although, at a certain intersection, we saw that even folk tales were seen as something which attracted the lower strata of the society, and how cinema has and television has tried to uplift it. So that kind of a dynamic thing also, keeps happening at the same time. So there are different kinds of undercurrents which try to place one culture over the other, but then there's a kind of a reaction also that keeps on coming in. So I was just referring to that. I hope I've been able to answer it at least to a certain extent.
Ji, sir. So we have another question from Shashank. He says, first of all, he is thanking you for such an enlightening presentation. He says, my question is, do you agree with the fact that advancement in technologies has put folklore and traditional bards in the vulnerable category, as when in the days of radio, it was very much in telecast, whereas in the era of mobile, it has lost its importance so much so that it needs revival for the survival?
Okay, so I do agree with the remark made to a certain extent that there was a time in which it seemed as if the resurrection of the folk tales or the folklore would be, difficult. But with the passage of time, we again saw that people are now referring back to those folk tales, those folklores, and they're trying to actually reconstruct them, represent them. Right. So, for example, if you take the example of cinema, a movie like Tumbad, right, it does, a kind of a retelling of a popular folklore. So in serials also we have examples of a lot of them which refer to the supernatural, and when you talk about the supernatural element, willingly or unwillingly they go back and refer to the past. Right. In the same vein, if you talk about the usage of mobile phones, if you talk about gaming, etc., then also you will see that it actually includes a reinvention of a lot of mythological characters, right? Or borrowing certain aspects from mythological characters and then reproducing or recreating some other interesting characters. So what I would like to believe is that this trend of actually revisiting the past, getting things out of it, or transforming them even into a series, web series like Asur, is something that is happening even to this day and has been attracting a lot of eyeballs.
Thank you, sir. I hope that resolves Shashank's query. And Professor Patnaik also has an observation on Shashank's question, and that is revival can be done with the help of others, but the survival lies in the hands of the community. So we have one more question, in fact, two more
Okay.
questions. I think we should be able to take at least one since there is a shortage of time.
Right.
So I'll take the next question that is by Ruchi Rana. She says, thank you for your presentation, sir. How do you see the relationship between old and new, telling or retelling? Is there a sight or witness their meeting in today's world? If yes, what do we make of this trend?
I couldn't understand the question. The first part of it was not
So she's asking, how do you see the relationship between the old and the new telling or retelling
okay. All right.
of these stories? And then she asks, is there a site of witness that there is a meeting in today's world, that there is like a center ground in today's world? If yes, what do we make of this trend?
Okay, the thing is that when you talk about reinvention, when you talk about the resurrection of the folk tales in the modern world, then they have to keep in mind, people who are creating it or trying to recreate it, they have to keep in mind that it should be in line or in sync with the taste of the audience. So what they do is they will not present the old thing exactly as it used to be. So, for example, when you talk about teleserials, when you have to create a character like Savitri, you cannot present Savitri as it is, right? You have to create it in the form of a modern woman. So on the face of it, you would see that she's a modern woman. She's doing a lot of things which perhaps Savitri would not be expected to do. But what they will do is they will take one central characteristic of Savitri, right? The loyalty, the faithfulness of standing by the husband through thick and thin. So even if the husband is erring, she will try to defend him, right? So when you do such a thing, when you do such a remodeling, then what happens is that the audience, at least to a certain extent, can identify with the character, right? Which is very important because, as I said, in case of television serials, it is very important to make a kind of a connect, right? So some of the aspects might be far-fetched, but if the audience cannot relate to the characters at all, then the job will not be done and the serial will not be successful at all. So that is the kind of meeting ground that I see between the old and the new.
Okay, so there is one more question. This is the last question we'll take for your presentation. This is
Okay,
by,
no issues.
she's asking, folk stories are brought into a popular medium like television by professional filmmakers and are designed in a way to gain more TRPs, whereas folklore is unfiltered and not always meant to give a moral lesson. Do you think this essentially misrepresents the folk?
See, the thing is that because of the kind of world that we live in, and a lot of focus on gaining high TRPs and gaining money out of it. So you cannot ignore the fact that they are using these folk tales to their own advantage, right? So what they do is there is a dearth of kind of storytellers who have something new to contribute. So they also perhaps find it easy to borrow tales from the ancient ones, right? And convert them into something and then present them to the audience. So it is also a method of convenience, and also it is a very sly and clever way of earning money out of it. So I agree to the fact that people at their mind, they have this entire impression that how to give new stories to people. And that's why there has been now a kind of a trend in which people go and explore these folk tales to an extent that they would actually be able to bring out a tale which is not very popular. So we as audience, we think like, oh, something very new has been presented to us, right? So that kind of a thrill, that kind of excitement has to be presented to the audience. Only then they would actually be invested in the tale which is being put forward by the writers.
Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you so much.
So I
My
think
pleasure.
now,
Yeah.
Ji sir, I think now we should move on to our next and last presenter for this session. Amit Kumar Yadav from Delhi College of Arts and Commerce, University of Delhi, and he will be presenting his paper on Oral Epic of Bhartari, a song of renunciation. I welcome you, Amit sir, and I request you to kindly introduce yourself to everyone before you start with your presentation. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, just a minute. Let me start my camera also. Thank you, Isha. I hope I am audible to everyone. Not visible right now. I'm trying to get my camera work. And so, yeah, just a minute.
So just make your presentation full screen, like click on
Yeah.
slide.
Let me switch on my camera, which I am trying to do so. Okay. So, is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Isha. I hope I'm visible too right now.
Yes, sir.
And audible as well to each and everyone on the other side of the screen. As from the title of my paper itself, it is evident that I would be focusing on the oral epic tradition of North India. Hello all, good afternoon. My name is Amit Kumar Yadav, and I work as an assistant professor at the Department of English, Delhi College of Arts and Commerce, University of Delhi. I have been teaching there for last 6 years. I teach English and mostly Indian literature in English and translation. The concern of this paper is to do with one of my, very prominent childhood memories, wherein with my grandmother, I used to be enthralled with the performance of certain yogis who would be dressed in saffron pagadi and their kurta and dhoti. So I would ask my grandmother, what is the significance of their dress? Why are they dressed like that? And she would say, one day, if you don't decide to get married, just go become a yogi. And at the end of your life, or at the end of your renunciatory process, you'll come to me and ask for Viksha. And once that Viksha is given to you, you'll become a complete yogi. So by keeping that in mind, when I started working on the oral epic of, I am using a singular here because I would be focusing mostly on one version of this epic. However, there are several versions available in the country, in various parts of the country, and most particularly even in the parts that I conducted my field work as well. And the area of my field work was and is the Awadhi and Bhojpuri speaking region of the country, most particularly Allahabad, Barabanki, Sravasti, and Gorakhpur, and in Bhojpuri, Buxar, and Chhapra. The thirst of this presentation is to bring forth a discussion on the oral epic tradition of North India with special reference to the narratives of Bhartari and its twin epic, the narrative of Gopichand. Uh, I don't want to speak without a script, so I would follow my script that I have prepared. So it goes here. And I'll try to be as brief as I can, and I'll try to finish it within 15 minutes because I have a performance to show to the audience for 5 minutes. Uh, so when we look at in Indian context, with its ancient civilization, rich cultural heritage, myths, legends, folk songs, and the like, only a few countries in the world could match with Indian folklores in their richness, depth, and wisdom. Folklore helps us to preserve the innermost recesses of this socio-cultural life of a society and its tradition, customs, social values, rites, rituals, etc. Indian civilization offers a great diversity in its unity with various ethnicities, religions, caste, and linguistic communities. However, the idea of India emerges out of a sense of bonding cutting across the differences And oral and folk cultural tradition, oral and folk cultural traditions and art forms could be an important source for discovering that sense of bonding. It is interesting to note here how folk arts and expressive forms travel across vast geographical territories and language barriers to bring people together. The singing and performance traditions of oral epic constitute a significant aspect of the folk life in India. The tradition of singing and performance of the narratives of Bhartari's life, first as a king and later on as a yogi, is intrinsically connected with the day-to-day lives of people. And when I say lives of people, I would be mostly concentrating on the lives of people living in the area that I have conducted my fieldwork. This paper seeks to study the oral narratives of Bhartari, which oral narratives of Bhartari, which are sung and performed by the renowned yogis and of the Nathpant and the householder singers, bards of yogi caste in North India. It also locates the oral narratives of Bhartari in the tradition of the renunciation in Hindu Dharma, which I think with the paucity of time, I would be referring to just and not dwell much on that, which constitutes a very vital aspect of certain segments of Indian folk life as it is lived and experienced by people. Uh, Folklore is a term that comes under the category of folk literature, including other components or aspects like folk songs, folk narrative, stories, folk drama, etc. The term folklore was first coined and used by William Thoms in 1846. He preferred folklore to replace the term like popular antiquities or popular literature. Initially, the word had been used in hyphenated form, folklore, but later on the hyphen was discarded to make it more inclusive. While defining folklore as the lore of people, William Thoms intended to include manners, customs, observations, superstitions, ballads, proverbs, and so on in his category to define his idea of folklore. The pioneering work by Thoms led to an increasing awareness about the characteristics of folklore, and by the second half of the 19th century, many eminent scholars started showing their interest studying and understanding the fundamentals of the vast subject. Since the introduction of the term folklore, scholars from all over the world have tried to offer a rational definition of the word. There was a controversy that emerged in providing a satisfactory definition of the term, particularly with the 25 definitions or 21 definitions given by different scholars in the Standard Dictionary of Folklore edited by Ariel Leach. The most suitable definition of the term comes from Ellen Dunes, who says that in folklore, folk can refer to any group of people whatsoever who share at least one common factor. And I'm not here to uh, delve into the controversies that came up with the definition of Dunes, which is beyond the scope of this presentation. However, I would like to take you to another rubric of folklore studies, that is the folk poetry, which, as per Eliot Oring, ranges from oral epics to autograph book, verses, epitaph, latinalia, that is writing on the walls of public bathrooms, limericks, ballads, bouncing rhythms, rhymes, jump rope rhymes, fingers and toe rhymes, dandling rhythms and rhymes, so counting out rhymes, and many more, and nursery rhymes. Uh, the most vibrant of the genres of folk poetry is folk epic or oral epic or transmissional epics, which are sung, performed, and circulated by a group of people who share a common factor, which could range from caste, ethnicity, religion, reason, and sect or belief system. Their transmission is ensured by the proprietor or the custodians through their singing and performance that vary from place to place and from one context to another. The literary epics, which are called foundational epics, are often used by the elites, or as it was being discussed right now, the high culture, as a means of acquiring symbolic consent of subordinates to make them participate in such a social system that the formers have devised to dominate the later. But on the contrary, the traditions of oral or folk epic works as the symbolic, social, and cultural capital of the latter that they employ to register their protest against the symbolic, elitist subordination and to write their own version or history. They represent a struggle over the appropriation of symbols, the struggle over how past and present are understood and portrayed. The fact that these oral epics always try to provide their own meaning to the local histories and events bestows upon them a unique status or which differs from the written epic tradition. These epics, though through their public performances, awaken the conscience of common masses to ignite them to actively participate in social opinion. They also provide alternative platforms to resist the cultural and social marginalization which the subordinate classes suffer at the hands of the elitist. But what should be borne in mind is that these folk narratives or oral epic, which differ from community to community in terms of their themes and meanings, do not pose any kind of open challenge to the popular and the dominant ideologies or social orders or structures. They rather use such strategies which are indirectly to subvert them on the one hand, and on the other hand they try to maintain an outwardly facade of conformity and complicity with them at superficial and superficially thematic level. In the context of Indian oral epics, Stuart Blackburn and Joyce B. Fluskiger have commented on the idea of oral epic in India by invoking certain similarities that folk epics share with their literary counterparts. They have also highlighted the inherent differences between these two. They contend that Indian oral epic, I quote, Indian oral epics are characterized by several formal features that literary and folklore scholars have identified with the epic genre worldwide. They identify this with three primary features that are: epic is narrative, it is poetic, and it is heroic. Another critic and folklorist, Felix Oiners, while referring to the epic in Slavic and Romance languages, contends that, and I quote, folk or oral epic songs are narrative poems in formulaic and ornamental style dealing with the adventures of extraordinary people. And the epic at the hand that I'm going to discuss complies with the definition so fully that that it becomes the epic of heroic deeds of extraordinary people, and it is sung in an episodic and formulaic manner. If we take this definition in account, provided by Stuart Blackburn and others, and Oneas, we notice that most of the Indian oral epics tend to comply with the given definition. The oral epic of Bhartari, and it is not Bhartrihari. Sometimes it is confused with Bhartrihari, the writer of the Satakas, but it's the Bhartari, the king, and its twin sibling, the narratives of Raja Gopichand, are the poetic narratives of heroic deeds of extraordinary nature, and the characters, though they are human, but the acts of deeds and miracles that they perform bring them closer to the divinity. In the context of Indian folk life and folkloric traditions, divinity and human are interconnected with each other, and it becomes very difficult for us to separate them. Therefore, these narratives are as much as about human beings' persistence and perseverance, so much it is about the constant interference made by gods in enabling characters' endeavor or derailing it by making him aware of his deficiencies. As R.C. Temple has commented, that, I quote, we find that the gods and saintly heroes are much mixed up and naturally in popular conception, and we have more than one instance in which the special attributes of deity, even from Hindu standpoint, are ascribed to such personages, ought we to stay more accurately such abstractions as Guru Gorakhnath. Guru Gorakhnath happens to be one of the founding fathers of Nath sect, to which this epic narration belongs to. And to continue with what temple says, and vice versa, even such gods par excellence as Shiva and Parvati are reduced almost to the level of ordinary mortals. Indian oral tradition, here we should keep in mind that Indian oral tradition is as old as the inception of the narrative or storytelling itself, and even the narratives of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, two national epics. They were first uh, found in the form of oral narratives, and it was quite late in the time that with the evolution of writing and zeal to preserve it for the posterity that they were written and compiled. It is not necessary for us that Indian oral epic tradition has to be defined and identified with the Western notion of oral epics, because in Indian context, they have been known by various names such as Lokgathas, Akhyan, Kavya, and Itihasa, particularly in the context of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, respectively. The oral epic of Bhartari or the Lokgatha of King Bhartari is one such narrative that comes into the category of yogic renunciatory narratives or the narrative of yogihood. Dr. Satyavrat Sinha, in his book Bhojpuri Lok Gatha or the Lok Gatha of Bhojpuri Reason, terms them as the Yog Kathatmak Lok Gatha or the renunciatory narratives. Let me invoke here what Blackburn classifies oral epic India as. He says that oral epic in India could be classified in three categories: martial, romantic, and sacrificial. To this category, another category could be added by the help of critics as Satyavrat Sinha, Devendra Satyarthi, Ram Naresh Tripathi, Krishnadev Baldev Upadhyay, and others who have extensively worked on the Awadhi and Bhojpuri reasons, Awadhi and Bhojpuri speaking reason with respect to their folk songs, folk narratives, ballads, and etc. So this category is the category of renunciatory epics, which focuses on the idea of renunciation as an act of heroism. In the Awadhi and Bhojpuri speaking reasons, two epics that could be brought into this category are the narratives of Raja Bhartari and Gopichand. In this presentation, I have heavily focused on oral narratives of Bhartari given the limited scope of time and space. However, whenever there is a performance of, just a minute, whenever there is a performance of Bhartari's narrative, it is always twinned with those of Gopichand, because both of them are connected with each other, not only in their familiar relationship, and there are various versions of the narrative that are available in the parts where I conducted my fieldwork. And in the versions that are found in Awadhi speaking region of the country, where Gopichand happens to be Bhartari, King Bhartari happens to be the maternal uncle of Gopichand. And even Angold informs us that in Rajasthani version of the narrative, uh, there is a special attention paid on the relationship between King Gopichand and Raja Bhartari. But as part, not only they are related with their familial, in terms of their familiar relationship, but also they are part of the same religious and yogic sect, and that is the Nath Sampradaya. In fact, Bhartari and Gopichand happens to be two of the most famous Naths of the sect. In total, there are 9 Naths, including Matsya Nath, Jalandhar Nath, Gorakhnath. I'm naming a few prominent ones. For a better understanding and discussion of the Nath tradition, I would suggest to go back to read Hajari Prasad Dwivedi's monumental work on Nath Sampradaya and Western Brick's work on Kanpata Yogis. However, it should be borne in mind that this epic does not, this is very important factor of this narrative narrative lores, is that epic does not focus much on the philosophic and tantric aspects of Nath Sampradaya. Rather, it vividly describes human aspects of King Bhartari's renunciation and how it affects his relationship with his wives.
To interrupt you here, but please wind up in 2 to 3 minutes.
Is it time?
So you have 2 to 3 minutes left.
Okay, so can I be given 5 minutes because this is I am still on. Okay, fine, no
Yes, sir.
problem.
Oh, please carry on, sir.
Yeah, since there is not the fourth presenter, so I could be given some time. Sorry. Uh, just a minute. I'll just conclude. Don't worry.
Ji, sir.
And the human aspects of King Bhartari's renunciation and how it affects his relationship with his wives and mother, making it more human and relatable. The pathos of epic lies in the fact that even if a king has to leave his kingdom to become a yogi, as it is fated, that is called Vidhana ka Kartar. And in fact, there is one tradition, one version of the narrative, which is here called Bhartari Charitra, and there is no writer, though there are other people who have claimed to be the writer of the text, but the writer is called to be Vidhana Ka Kartar, which means in the fate of the hand or in the fate of Dai. So King Bhartari is born to become yogi, and he renounces the world, and there is a conversation between yogi king and his wives why he is leaving the kingdom, and that particular version I want to play for the audience. Coming to the I'm leaving the second and third part of the my paper. I'm coming to the concluding part of the paper, and then I'll be playing the song. Since the folk oral narratives and oral epics of Bhartari are sung by the yogi community, so a brief account of the community becomes quite pertinent. I understand the paucity of time, but still, originated in North India, this community has spread across the country, more specifically in the states of northern, central, and western India. This community takes pride in following the teachings and precepts of the Nath sect. Though it is not very easy to determine the exact time this sect came into existence, but it is by the historical records and historians' assertion, it could be concluded that the time for this epic to for this sect to emerge is from somewhere between 8th century to 14th century AD, with Matsyanath, Jalandharnath, and Gorakhnath as its founding pillars. According to folklore, Gorakhnath was a disciple of Matsyanath, and Bhartari was Gorakhnath's disciple. And Raja Gopichand was the disciple of Jalandharnath. The yogi community has two branches. One is the householder, another is the renunciators or renouncers. Sometimes their identity becomes so interestingly fluid that they cross the traditional religious categories. The branch of this community belongs to Sufi Islam, but the heroes of their renunciatory songs are Hindu kings Bhartari and Gopichand. Most of the Muslim yogis are householders. Their singing exhibits the composite cultural tradition of India, which makes these folk epics different from their written counterparts in their agenda and message. With passage of time, the work of Kabir and other Bhakti and Sufi poets have come to form the literature of their singing and performance. It is important here to note that their ways of singing may differ from each other. Therefore, it becomes quite clear that through their singing, they relate to their social, cultural, and spiritual lives. To conclude, the oral epic of Bhartari and its twin epic Gopichand are performance-based narratives which are performed and sung in a given context. They are performed with an intrinsic cultural relationship between the performer and the audience. This relationship between the performer and the audience forms a kind of synchronization amongst themselves, and thus they are able to give a different meaning to the same text, highlighting the fact that different versions of the epic form some kind of correspondence with each other while retaining their thematic and performative similarities and differences. The cultural ideas and values that have traveled across regions through folk oral epic traditions try to answer or try to provide the answer to the increasing cultural and linguistic chauvinism that has been plaguing our literary and cultural topography. So with this brief concluding remarks, I would like to take you back to the presentation that is there. So just briefly, I'll tell you This is the first picture that you can see here is a picture of a Nath Yogi who performed for me in the regions of Allahabad in the Audhi version, and his basic musical instrument was sarangi, and the other is by a professional performer who earns money and livelihood by performing the songs of Gopi Chand Bhartari in the state of Uttar Pradesh, but in the region Bundelkhand. And you can see the differences between their instruments. So it's not entirely, largely their musical instrument is sarangi, which is sometimes called Gopi Chand as well, but they can differ from places to places, context to context, and they are constitutive of both primary forms, that is singing, and secondary form, that is the performance along with other instruments and writers. These are three different versions in three different genres. The Bhartari Charit is sometimes, attributed, as I have told you, Vidhna Ka Kartar, but there are various versions available in Audhi and Bhojpuri region. The other one is Raja Bhartari Natak by Radheshyam Kathavachak, a very popular singer and performer of Parsi theatre. The third one is Bhartari Maharaj Ka Lokgeet, which is the folk song of Bhartari Maharaj, which is sung by mostly people in the region. These are the two versions of the Sangits, and Sangits are the chapbooks which were very popular in the Nautanki tradition of the country. So you can see that it was so popular among people that it could be brought in both Parsi theatre and made popular, as well as Nautanki, which was quite a famous genre at the point of performing tradition. These two are the chapbooks that I happen to collect while my field work, which have traveled from oral to print. This is a local performance of the narrative in the Gazipur district where I conducted a field work. I wanted to talk about more, but there is no time. This is a very important one because this narrative is one of the very prominent narratives of, there are four versions that are available in this part of the country, but one of the prominent version is how Bhartari was forced to renounce the kingdom by an idea, or by the fact that his wife, who is in his present Samde, who is his wife right now, was his mother in his previous life. And this is sung by Padma Shri Hira Lal Yadav, who is no more with us, but it is sung in Biraha tradition. So you can see that how popular the narrative was, that it has never left, or it has not left any other forms of performance or performative traditions where it cannot be used as a story. If I have time and if Isha allows me, I want to show just a glimpse of the performance.
Sir, although you do not have much time, but since there are no questions for you, maybe we can like have a little video that you
Okay,
want.
okay, thank you. So I think you don't have much of the time. Therefore, I'll end my presentation here by giving just one context. The context of the singing here is that Raja Bhartari has taken sannyas. He has become yogi after being detached or disillusioned from his worldly life. So he's leaving the kingdom. So there is a mutual, you can say, mutual dialogue between Bhartari and his wife and his mother, where they are questioning why he is leaving the kingdom, and he explains that this particular version is in Awadhi, and it is sung with so much of poignancy and karuna that it ends up bringing tears to the eyes of people. Thank you so much for giving me some extra time, Isha.
Thank you, Amit sir, for your presentation. You can perhaps leave a link of that song in the chat box in case anyone is interested and they want to
That is
listen.
copyrighted actually. Uh, it's
Okay, okay.
my own collection, and I'm still working on it. So sorry, I cannot share with everyone. But yes, I would love to talk about it more at certain point of time later on.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Your presentation was quite insightful, and I'd say it is really well structured. I'm really impressed with your field work. I put in a lot of efforts, and how you've structured it around the oral narratives of Bhartari in the tradition of renunciation in Hindu dramas, and how these folk songs are performed by these yogis. I mean, we know so much, and I mean, we hear all of these things, but it is so amazing that when somebody dissects all of these from our for us, and we gain a whole new perspective on these things.
Hmm.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, there is one question that has come up
Yeah.
by Shashank.
Isha, I'll save your time. I have read the question. Okay,
Okay.
so yes, Shashank, these ascetics and the yogi naths, they have to collect bhiksha, and they have to collect a lot of clothes, and not money, clothes, grains in the form of alms, so that they are able to sustain themselves and their community. And it's actually a kind of test that is provided to them by their gurus, and mostly it is in the form of guru shishya parampara that it happens. So every yogi who is initiated into the yogihood has to collect an amount which is determined by the guru, so that and it's not very easy to collect that amount. So it's not that 1 kg, 2 kg, it is in quintals, and sometimes 10 quintals, 20 quintals of grains and clothes. So it's a test that is given to them, so that keeping in mind, if they are able to uh, sustain themselves, or they are able to keep their perseverance alive, or if they qualify to become yogis or not, because the life of yogi is not a very easy one. So they have to survive in any circumstances. And one of the last tests of being complete yogi is to go to your own home and ask for bhiksha from your mother, from your wife, calling her mother, mata. So that is the kind of tests is taken by the gurus, and there's a detailed description of this in all the narratives, all the versions that are available. And one of the interesting work that has been done by Dr. Nand Kishore Tiwari of Chhattisgarhi version of the narrative, where he has been able to highlight various facets of this narrative by connecting the Hindu and the Muslim versions of singing. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So there is one more question by Mahesh Kumar De. He asks, how do you see the future of this epic singing or performance? How
Hmm.
would prefer to be disciples or yogis?
Yes, this is the performance is dying. Of course, even those householders who have been going around the villages asking for viksha to survive themselves. And let me tell you that in Awadhi and Bhojpuri region, this is the only singing tradition and performance tradition which people have used, particularly the householder yogis, to earn their livelihood. But there is a kind of shame that has come into their existence, that if they do so, then people, they are castigated and excommunicated from their community. And another factor that is very important here to keep in mind that in Gorakhpur, which is the mutt or the center of this Gorakh Sampradaya or Nath Sampradaya, Muslim yogis are tormented. They are thrown out. So they don't even take their names as Yogi Abdul or Yogi Muhammad this or Yogi Muhammad that. They simply say that they are Yogi Balak Das or Yogi this. Why? Because there is an excessive uh, centralization of this parampara, this sect, which was mostly a very secular one. And it traversed the hierarchy of Hindu religion very interestingly by bringing in all people from all walks of life and embracing the sect of Nath Sampradaya. But right now it is being made mostly, not right now, from 1950s onwards, it is made mostly into a Saivite religion, while it was a cross between Saivites and Buddhism, to go by Dr. Rajkumar Verma's assertion. Second part of the questions, yes, many people would not like to become disciples and yogis, but the tradition continues. And 5 days back, when I was talking to my mother in Allahabad, she told me that she says in Hindi कि तुम्हारे वो योगी फिर से आ गए हैं, अगर आना है तो record कर लो, because I would always go after them and record them. So because of the pandemic, one thing has happened. Those who have lost their jobs, they have now turned themselves into yogi and marked up some narrations from Kabir and Bhakti poets and Bhartari, and they are singing and earning their livelihood. That is a kind of, fake lorization of the narrative.
Thank you, sir. Since there are no more questions for Amit, sir, I think it's time for us to conclude this session.
Isha, before you conclude, I would like to thank Professor Patnaik for giving me space to share my fieldwork and my observations, though it was limited. But thank you so much to the Department of English, the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, all the faculty members and the organizing team. I have just one request, which I have made through my mail as well. Kindly correct my name from Amit Kumar to Amit Kumar Yadav for official purpose only. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure your request has been taken care of.
Thank you.
Okay. Sir, with this, now I would like to conclude. There is one more comment, I think, by Shashank. Sir, maybe if you can just read it and revert to him in the chat box itself. Okay, I think I should read it for you. Amit, sir, are you still there?
Myself, so to avoid any kind of overlapping of the voices. So yeah, I'm reading, and I think I'll answer him. Okay, or
Yeah.
if you want to answer him right now, then I can answer through this. Otherwise, I'll write there.
Okay, sir. So you can answer right here, because I think this is the last question we'll take, and then we'll wind up, sir.
Acha. So they ask for Bhiksha. Is the song something like Maiya de देश दुनिया का त्याग कर दिया है, अब आप लोग मेरे सहारा हो? Because I never could decipher the meaning of the song. Yes, this is also one of the versions, but mostly they ask, the first thing when they come to your place, they would call Jai Gorakhnath Alakh Niranjan Ma Bhiksha De. And when you ask them to sing, they sing. Otherwise, and mostly the asking for Bhiksha is to be taken in two ways. One, for the survival of the householder yogis, and second, for the renunciatory process of the renouncers. So it is a pattern, it is a tradition which they try to continue with, and nobody denies them. And they don't ask for Bhiksha without doing anything. One thing is very important, that in the villages, they would wake up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, take their sarangi and one torch with them, and they would make the round of the village by singing the songs of renunciation of Bhartari and Gopichand, and try to relate that with the village that they are living in. And once it is done, around 10 o'clock in the morning, they would come to your dwar, to your place,
and they will ask for one, they'll choose just one place, one house, and they'll ask for the diksha, so that they could be able to survive on that. I'm talking about the Nath yogis who are renouncers. Householders, they try to earn money out of their performance.
Thank you, sir. I hope that resolves Shashank's query. So I think it's time for us to conclude this session. And before we do that, I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone who's present here on behalf of the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, University of Delhi. Your active participation and overwhelming response keeps us motivated. And we hope to see you at 6 p.m. today for a special lecture on God's design of marriage, a case study of Mailaralinga by Professor Purushottama Bilimale. I am sure we are going to enjoy that session as well, and I hope to see everyone there with the same energy and enthusiasm. Thank you